tell me a little bit about prepping for this movie. Do you stick to the script, or does Rupert encourage you to read the book and study up a little?
Well, I didn't know anything about the story, so I always, especially if it's a true story, want to know as much as possible. I'm quite geeky about it and do lots of research. And I met Jill because I wanted to get her perspective on it, because obviously reading Mike's book, it's an autobiography, so it's very much from his perspective. And then worked with Rupert on really understanding who this woman was, and then similarly with Jonah, we met before and talked about it, and wanted to feel comfortable with each other, that it would be a believable situation they were in.
How is it conveying all of that in the minimal amount of screen time you get? Because you're not on screen as much as James and Jonah, but at the same time, you do sell her as a woman with a mind of her own who also has an arc.
Well, that has to be, that's so important to bring complexity and nuance. And she, when I met Jill, I immediately was like, this woman is incredibly intelligent. Actually was able to say that she felt like she had become intoxicated with Christian Longo. And I thought that was really fascinating, that even though she's skeptical about it, she sort of similarly, like Mike, loses her head a bit and they become obsessed with this man and this story. So I just thought there was so much for me to play with her, and it's important that was on the screen. She's
also such an important grounding element in this movie, because he's completely into it and she's kind of with the audience just a little bit.
Absolutely, absolutely. She's she has an instinct immediately something's not quite right, and she can feel that Mike has great shame in losing his job, and that in many ways he's trying to compensate for that. For what he's done, for falsifying that information. So he's desperate to prove himself and desperate to refine that success. So she, and also I think there's problems in their relationship that they're using this man to try and solve. So there was a lot to play with.
Can you talk a little bit about that relationship? Because it's really interesting how the movie doesn't just spell it out like, look, they are dating, they're together. It kind of lets you figure it out on your own.
Yeah, that was very much from talking with Rupert and feeling like in order for them to both become obsessed with Christian Longo, which they in different ways they do, it had to feel like there were some problems in their relationship at the beginning, that perhaps they were looking for a way of having a distraction, of a way of not dealing with the issues in their relationship.
Can you talk a little bit about how the set itself reflects that? Because there's so much detail in that house and just the way things are arranged, and it's kind of like conveying those details without actually using dialogue or heavy exposition.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, in some ways, you've got, I feel with both Jill and Christian, there's a similarity in that they're both contained and isolated, which I think is an interesting mirroring. You know, so she's almost there's a longing in her. There's almost something quite romantic, and again with Mike in the way that they become really entrenched in Christian Longo's life. But you're absolutely right. In some ways, she's in her own prison in the way that he is in a literal prison.
She has a nice piano in her prison.
Yeah, she gets to play the piano. So you know, there's her life's a bit better than his.
And my next question was going to be: there's no levity in this movie whatsoever. So what was the environment like on set? Does everyone have to play it super serious, or do you want to turn it off and get out of it the second he calls cut?
Well, it does come because it is a complicated and profound story and rooted in real people's lives. You can't just cut off from it. It does stay with you, and there is a heaviness with it, because it's a really intense story. But I mean, you try, and I think what happens is you pull together, actually, and that's what we find. I remember Jonah and I saying, you know, this is quite tough, but you go into that experience together and you care about the story, and you and there's a real sense of camaraderie in doing it.
How was it working with James and Jonah? Was there anything about their processes that surprised you?
No, they're both incredibly collaborative, and they're both very, very easygoing. They care about what they do intensely. I love how they both are always challenging themselves, and they love film, And so both extremely easy to work with, actually.
And how about Rupert? Because this is his first feature, but he's got a background in theater. Can you pick up on that at all?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And that was one of the reasons why I was really interested in doing the film, was I saw Rupert's screen version of Macbeth, which obviously he'd had loads of success with the play, and just thought there were so many similarities between that story and this story. I was interested to see what he would do with it. But he definitely brings that theatrical background to the way that you work on scenes and break it down, and lots of talks about character, and I love all that stuff.
Does he like to give a lot of notes on set? Because in theater, you can't really give notes in between scenes or anything like that, so I imagine he might not hear.
He's hands-on. He gives you the freedom to kind of, I like to bring my ideas to it and be given time to work on something, but then he'll come in and give you, and he's obsessed with dialogue, and which obviously comes from that theatre background, so there's lots of discussions about okay, which is the right word we should be saying, it's very, very collaborative.
All right, now the time has come. Star Wars Rogue One. Can you tell me anything about just the audition process?
I cannot talk about anything. I'm so excited about it, and I'm glad that other people are excited about it as well. I get butterflies. I'm looking forward to doing it, but I can't say much more than that.
I like to bet every single person who walked in this room is very excited about it.
Yeah, it's great. No, it's just a brilliant franchise.
Were you into the films beforehand, or
well,
did you...
I was born a little bit after they originally came out, but I watched them with my cousins and my brother, and I think, like lots of people, it's part of your childhood in some way.
Do you have a favorite film?
I like them. I like them in different ways.